Okay. We're holding on Nuntes. Nuntes Amud Beis Hamagdish B'teich Shalai is B'teich Sedei Chavere is a new Mishnah. Magdish B'teich Sedei Chavere. Yeah. Do we think Hashem?
Stopped in the middle of the Mishnah?
No, there's two Mishnahs there. We stopped at the first one. Even though the new topic is really the second one. We didn't have time instead.
Top or bottom?
See how Magdish? Okay. What's going on? Thank you. We thank Hashem for able to learn Torah every day. It's for learning, we shall place the Mikdash immediately. A cold Miami day. A bit of hot water. Hamagdish B'teich Sedei Chaverish Leibashas. If someone fills up his friend's property with grain and he doesn't have permission from his friend to put them there, V'achaltan Behemtei Shel Balasada, and the owner of the field, that other property, has an animal that goes and he eats the grain that was put there without permission. So Potter, the owner of the field, doesn't have to pay for those damages. We're on 59B. In Buska Behan, but if someone got damaged by that or the animal got damaged, then Bala Gadash Chayev, then the owner of the grain is Chayev. And if he had permission to put it there, then Balasad Chayev, then the owner of the field is going to be Chayev. Not the owner of the grain, the owner of the field, because the owner of the field gave him permission to put it there. The Gemara immediately says, it doesn't match Rebbe's view. Rebbe said, if it would follow Rebbe, it's not enough just to give permission for someone to put the items there. That's not enough. He has to actually say that I'm taking responsibility to watch it, to make sure no one gets hurt by it. And he didn't do that. He just said you can put it there. Rav Papa says this case could be different because and this is talking about the guard, the guard of the of the threshing floor. Even the Amalek, since he tells him Ayal v'Gadosh, come in and put it down, that is Ayal v'Antalachu. That's like he's telling him, put it down and I'm going to watch it. This was a common practice where there was a guard there that would do this. So when he says come in, then over here it would be a different case. So in other words, Rebbe usually holds that in a regular case where someone says, yeah, I don't mind if you put it there on my table or on my corner of my house or something, it doesn't mean it's going to watch it. But over here it was set up like that where there's a guard that actually takes care of the stuff that's put there. Okay, now this is the new topic. We switch, we shift in the middle of a kindness. He'll watch it. That is what it means. Saying is what it means. Yeah, it is. It shifts from animal damages to fire damages in the middle of a kindness, and this is by this Mishnah. And if someone sends a fire, we'll see in the Gemara what type of fire, but he's called a mishaleach. He's sending the fire, which means he's giving it to someone to watch. And he's giving it into the hands of a deaf, mute, an imbecile, or a child. So the rule is even though if he would have done this with an animal, he would have been chayev actually, because the animal needs to be guarded and he's not guarding it. When it comes to a fire, it's a little bit different because the fire doesn't naturally go and do damage. The fire, you have to move it around to do damage. You have to take it. It's just the fire, just a candle on your sink. A candle on your counter is not going to do damage. You say if you leave a fire on the counter, a candle, have a candle burning. I say, what's a fire? Fire is a candle or some sort of torch. So you can leave it on the counter as long as no one does anything. It's fine. It can burn like Friday night. The candles are burning. Don't do anything. It's fine. The problem is when the kids start playing with it, this becomes problematic. So here he left it, and they're going to do the damage. But what he did was negligent, but it's not enough to make him chayav. So he's chayav b'din shemayim. Shalach biat bikeach. If he gives it over to someone with all his capacities, so then habikeach chayav. Then the pikeach, the smart person, is going to be chayav. Even though he says it wasn't my fire, it was his fire, that doesn't help. Let's say there's two people involved in this. So it's always going to be the second person that's going to be the problem. The guy that brought the fire was the first in this case. The one that brought the wood was second. Maybe it's Eitzim Chayev. The one that brings the wood, he's the one that really got the fire going. Let's say someone just put wood down. And another person came and put the fire under the wood. Then second person is the one that's going to be Chayev. First person can always claim, I did nothing. It's the second guy that came that. If someone else comes and blows on the fire, he fans the fire. So the one that blows on it is going to be chayiv. He's the one that got it going. And lipsa haruach, let's say it was fanned by the wind. Tosfos has a discussion here what type of wind we're talking about. And it would be nice to say that Tosfos' conclusion is that we're talking about an abnormal wind. It's easier to explain. An abnormal wind came, then kulam b'turim, everyone is exempt. Everyone thought that this fire was perfectly fine, no damage is going to happen, and an abnormal wind came. So then they're going to be exempt. Maybe there's no chiddush in that. Okay. There was a fire and then someone pushed the grain closer to it. It's exempt. The owner of the fire. Well, in that case, the Gemara explained it. It's talking about an abnormal wind that came. Both. No, it was a person in that case, but it was Rabbi Yeshua speaking. He bent the grain over closer to the fire, but then an abnormal wind brought the fire to the grain. We said that he was exempt. I was supposed to know an abnormal wind was going to come. Okay, we're discussing over here a fire that's being handed over to a Cher Sheit of the Katan. So we have a machlekes for Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. If you remember, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish had a machlekes before about fire. Earlier, I forget which daf. Maybe it's daf test. And they said over there that what's the cause? What's the reason? No, what's the cause? What's the basis for someone that lights a fire to be obligated? Do we consider it that his money caused damage? And just like you have to watch your ox, that it shouldn't cause damage, you also have to make sure that your fire doesn't cause damage. Like all your possessions have this responsibility that's placed on you. If you have anything, you have to always guard it. Or do we say that it's actually not your money that's causing that damage? We say that it's your own arrow. Rabbi Yochanan says Eisha Mishum Chitzai. Remember the Ches in Chitzai? Rabbi Yochanan says Chitzai. So now what's similar to that machlekes is going to come out over here. There's something similar. Amar Reish Lakish Mishmei the Chizkiya. Reish Lakish says the name of Chizkiya. Leishan wal Hashemas legachelas v'liba. We're talking about over here when he gave to the deaf mute, the imbecile, and the child a fire. He didn't really give them a fire. He gave them a hot coal. A hot coal needs to be fanned. So he gave them something that was relatively safe. They came along and turned it into a mazik, and turned it into a damage. Aval masaleh shall heves, but if you would have actually given him something that's actually dangerous, a flame, a torch, something like that, then he would have been chayav. My taima, my sufka garmalai. It would be considered his own action. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Afilu masalei shall have a spotter." Rabbi Yochanan says, even if he gives him the flame, he's going to be exempt. My timer, why is he going to be exempt? It's because of the tongs of the cherish that causes the damage. In other words, he's probably maybe not holding the flame, with his hands. He's holding it with the tongs. But he would only be chayiv if he gave him not only the flame is probably attached to something, but together with that, he would give him also thorns, twigs, and a candle. Or candle would be the flame. That would be his own doing. Basically, Rabbi Yochanan, if you learn like this, I think Rashi learned this back in that Gemara, that Rabbi Yochanan holds it needs to be mamish direct. The fire is high because it's your arrow. This person pulls the arrow back and he lets go. So it wasn't me, it was the arrow. It doesn't work like that. That's you. So over here also, the fire needs to cause the damage in a very direct way, directly from the person that did it. And you need to have the twigs and the thorns and everything in the hands of, handed over from the person that's causing the damage. According to Rish Lakish, it goes the other way. Rish Lakish says that it's memaina. It doesn't have to be direct. You owned it, your property. I don't know what you did, but you didn't. One thing you do, you didn't guard it. So according to Rish Lakish, even if it's less direct, you're still going to be high. It is. It's potter by the time because he didn't give him the wood. Fire itself is fine, and a flame is fine, unless it gives him the wood to make it a bigger fire. Then just the candle is not a problem. Okay. Sholach biad pikeach chayav. Chulu. If he gives it over to a smart person, the smart person is chayav. Then the chulu. That's the main point of it. Chulu, in that etc. You have to go back and read. Mishnah said that if one person brings the fire and one person brings the wood, the last one's chayav. Then it says if another person comes and blows on it, the one that blows on it is chayav. Okay. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, says Man detani liba le mishtabesh, man detani niba le mishtabesh. Alaman and a nun could be interchangeable, and we have to, according to this Gemara, there's two versions of the Mishnah. One version was liba, one was niba. Like these kid stories. One of the kid stories about I forget the name of it. It was a play on the Purim story, but it was. It wasn't Purim, it was Marup or something. The city of Marup. They switched it around. Anyway, in there, he calls out something like, "Don't open the gate," and he says, "Open the gate, open." Okay, we'll open it. Anyway, so over here they said Niba. They said, "Did you mean Liba? Liba?" And they said, "No, Niba." Yeah. Okay, Liba, fine. Anyway, either way, he says it's both of them are not a mistake. Why? Because it goes like this. Mandatani liba lemishtabish mantani liba lemishtabish. Mandatani liba lemishtabish tiksib balabasesh. We see the word liba by a fire. It's called the flame of the fire. Mandatani niba lemishtabish, one that says niba. He's also not mistaken. Tiksib bayir nips of a sign because it says it creates the breath of the mouth. So the movement of the lips is niba. Whispering. That's niba actually. The whispering of the lips. So sung the blowing on the fire is like that whispering. So niba would mean if he whispered into it, if he blew on it. Okay, both of those words could be used. Yeah, it's okay. Ready? Okay. Labsa ruach kolam peturim. If the wind blew on it, then everyone is exempt. Taner Rabbanan, start in the brisa. Liba v'lipsa ruach. What happens if there's like a zevazeh goyim? There's two causes to this fire spreading. One is the guy blew on it, and also the wind blew on it. So together, They what was that? Lick the pot clean. Together they got it to cause some damage. So if this person alone would have caused the damage, even without the ruach, even without the wind there, then he's going to be chayav. Even though the wind is there, the wind itself would have caused the damage. Maybe actually, that's not so clear.
How does a little bit of wind push the whole fire away and make it higher? Because it blows. It's not gonna push the fire.
Yeah, could be he blew like that. Could be he took a big board and he fanned it. Whatever it was his action that caused it. Or it could be he blew on it. When he blew on it, when you ever go camping, when you blow on it, the fire blow on the bottom, the fire moves in one direction. You see like everything moving.
Yeah, but it's a big fire.
If it's a big fire. It started small and he's blowing on it, it catches onto something else. And because of that, his neighbor's granary burns down. So is the other fire here? Is the other wind the regular wind, or could the other wind have done it on its own? That's a discussion over here. What's going on? But anyway, let's see what happens. It says Bimlav, but if he wouldn't have been able to cause the fire to go on its own, to get started on its own, if it's only together with the wind, then he's going to be pater. The Gemara asks, why is he going to be pater? If the two of them together, the wind and this person together blow on it, and it creates the fire, one of the malachas on Shabbos is to winnow. The way you winnow, when we would do this and teach this in school, what we do is we take a bag of peanuts with the shells on it, before they take the shells off. So we would take that, we'd crush it, and then we would put it onto like a sheet, and we would throw with 4 people in, we'd throw it into the air, and put on fans, and the fans would blow all the peels, the shells would blow it away, and the peanuts would fall back down. So anyway, that's Zayda, that's winnowing, and they would do that with grain. They would have to get all the chaff. They would have to get it off. They would throw it into the wind. Now the wind comes and does the job. Electric fans, or maybe they had people going like this with the board. So, but it says if someone is winnowing on Shabbos, he's going to be chayav. He throws it up. Who does the malacha? The wind. The wind does the malacha. So over here, he does it together with him. So why over here are we going to say that he's pater, even though on Shabbos he's going to be chayav when he does the malacha together with the wind? It's like a natural thing. If it's you and nature, so if that's the natural thing, then you should be chayav. Amar Abaya. Right. Yeah, but over here we're saying that when he fanned it, it would not be enough to increase. It's only together with the wind, but the wind is natural, so it's him and the wind. It should be enough. For the winnowing is chayav. Over here is pater. Over here, either he's chayav, either a chatas, or he's chayav the death penalty. Over here he's chayav to his neighbor, or he's pater to his neighbor, because it's causing a damage. The Gemara Amar Abaya, we're going to have 2 or 3 answers here or more. Amar Abaya, you're right, the guy was blowing, but the wind was blowing the other direction. But it turned out that together with his blowing and the wind blowing in the other direction, turned out it caused it to move, and it turned out that it caused it to go. And so he had no reason to believe that what he was doing was going to actually cause damage, because the wind was going in the other direction. So he didn't have to think about it. It wasn't his, I was supposed to know that it was going to actually cause a damage when the wind wasn't even going in the same direction. Okay, I'm explaining it according to the Tosfos says it. Rava says, "Kain shaliba beruach mitzuya." He was blowing naturally. And the wind was an abnormal wind. So he didn't have to think that there's going to be, all of a sudden, there's going to be a gust of a tornado type wind. He didn't have to think about that. So he was surprised. He was blowing it. It wasn't going to do anything. And then this other wind came. That was abnormal. Reb Zeir Amar, between the Tamra Tzimuri. According to Reb Zera, he wasn't actually really blowing it. He was just warming his hands, what you do in the cold. Remember the Siyam Hashas? You blow on your hands. Okay. Just to keep them warm. So it wasn't really blowing. So that's not considered really blowing, and that's why he would be exempt. Ravashi Amar Kiamrin and Zaira Vurach Masiat Animilinian Shabbos, the Melachs Machshavach Asra Torah. Ravashi says no. Ravashi says that you're making this comparison between Shabbos and damages. And it's not really a comparison. On Shabbos, the way what the Torah forbade was the accomplishment of work. Now, because you had an intention to do this work, how was the work going to get done? You throw it into the wind, and the wind blows it away. So that was exactly your machshava. That was exactly the thought process that you had when you were doing what you were doing, and that's forbidden. Aval hacha grama balmahu. But over here, when it comes to damages, it's not enough that your thought makes you obligated. It's not your thought that makes you obligated. It has to be your direct damage. So if you leave the ladder up to the bird cage, even though your intention is that the squirrels and the cats should be able to go up and eat it, but there are no birds, no squirrels and cats right now. You didn't actually destroy the birds in the birdhouse. You just left the ladder there. Even though you had thoughts of causing damage, that doesn't mean that you're chayav. Chayav d'shemayim maybe, but not that you have to pay. The grama ben azaken pater. Few indirect causes when it comes to damages are exempt. You don't have to pay for it.
Is Aish the only malacha that's the Raisa? Not necessarily.
No, Aish, when you're talking about on Shabbos, yeah, the fire on Shabbos. So there is it's only malacha that has a direct pasuk for it. Right. All the other malachas are learned out from other sources. What was important in the Mishnah. Then there's a discussion in the Gemara. Why is lighting a fire separate from everything else? That's why I discuss these two opinions. Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. And regarding damage, regarding Shabbos. Damages. Yeah. Yeah. So over here we're saying that the intention doesn't matter. The intention doesn't matter. And the intention matters by Shabbos. That's what you intended. But when it comes over here, it has to be direct or indirect. The outcome is the damage happens, but then you have to see who did it. And it wasn't him directly that did it. Okay. Mishnah says, someone that sends a fire, and the fire eats, it consumes wood, stones, and dirt. Now it doesn't really consume them. It means it blackens them. What's it called? Scorched. Is there a word for that? Well, whatever the case is, he's going to be chayiv to pay for that damage. We quote the pasuk. It says if the fire goes out and it finds thorns and it consumed a granary, or standing grain, or a field. Bunch of examples. So it says that the owner of the fire, the one that sent the fire, has to pay. The one that lit the fire has to pay for all that damage. Rava says, "Lamali the kasser rachmana kaitzim gadish kama v'sada." Why does the pasuk need to give me 4 examples of things that could burn? It's necessary. Because of rachmana kaitzim, if it would only say thorns, havamina kaitzim, it would have said thorns. Who the chayiv rachmana? That's what Hashem says that you're chayiv for, that you're obligated to pay. People don't really care about thorns, and also it's very common for thorns to catch on fire. So we would say that the Eibishter says, Hashem says, that you have to be careful when it comes to thorns because a lot of people are not careful with it, and that's a common problem. So he says that if anyone does that, they're going to be chayiv. No one lights granaries on fire. So people are not negligent about granaries. So Emalaya would say that maybe the Torah, the Eibishter doesn't say that Yechai. Would say that's a strange case. When we make Yechai, the reason why we say Yechai is because we want to prevent people from being negligent. But this is people are usually careful anyway. Maybe you're going to be exempt. Because if it says the granary, I could have thought the reason why you're chayav by the granary is because that's a big loss. But by the thorns, where it's not really much of a loss, maybe I would say maybe the Eibishter says, Torah says, you don't have to pay for ruined thorns. Just ruin the neighbor's hedges. What is the hedges? Just some thorns. So, right. But nevertheless, it's cheaper. I would say you only have to the only chayav if on the road there's an accident, an expensive car. It's much more serious. Old jalopy, there's another dent on it. So what are you going to make me pay? Okay, Kamma lamali. Why does it say Kamma, standing grain? Ma Kamma begali, afkal begali. Just like standing grain is exposed, so too tzugazant. So too, anything that burns, you're only going to be chayiv if it's exposed. This is coming to exclude. Did we have a word for it before? Anything that's covered over in a haystack or in a vineyard, that you're going to be exempt. Anything that's covered over in the field or in the haystack, you're going to be exempt from paying for that. What was the word that we used for it before? We call it kamma, or we called it something else? We called it taman. Anything that's taman, you're going to be exempt. Taman is so that's what we learned from kamma, that the only hive it's standing up exposed. Well, Rabbi Yehuda the mechayev aniski taman beish, we have it over here. Rabbi Yehuda that says that yechayev on things that are concealed. Kamma lamali. So why does it need to say kamma? He says yechayev. It's not excluding anything. He says l'rabis kol balikaima. It's coming to include that even animals that get burnt in the fire or trees that get burnt in the fire are also going to be chayev. But Rabbanan l'rabis kol balikaima minali. How does the Rabbanan know that yechayev also for trees and animals? Nafkalu mi oy hakama. There's an extra word, or the standing grain. Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda do with the word oy? It says oy mi bayle lachalak. He says that if it didn't say oy, which means or, I could have thought that you're only chayav if all of those things get burned. Wait, you didn't burn the standing grain yet. I'm not paying just for the grain till you burn the standing grain. It says no, which means or. For Rabbana l'chalik minalahu, how do the Rabbana know if they use the word oy to teach me that it's also including trees and animals? How do they know that you don't have to burn everything to be chayiv, even one or the other? So nafkul mi ayasada. It says oy again. It says or. So we know it from the other or. Rabbi Yehuda, I did chas rachman ayakam chas ayasada. Rabbi Yehuda says that I'm not learning from the ayasada because since it says ayakama, so that's just to keep it symmetrical. It says ayasada. I don't have to learn from it. Sada lamali. Why does it have to say a field? But we learned in the Mishnah that even if it doesn't consume it, but it ruins the plowed field because it scorches the earth, and it scorches the stones. It blackens the stones. That's also chayiv, even though it didn't consume anything. Let it just say that, and we won't even need to say the other ones, because if you chayiv, even when it doesn't even consume it, it should be chayiv for everything else. Field because it fertilizes it. What would they burn? The sugar cane they would burn. The sugar cane. Get rid of the green. They make it harvest it more efficient. Otherwise, a lot of green stuff on it. I think actually it gives nutrients to the soil afterwards, but you have to wait a year. Basically, you lose a crop. So it's still high for the crop, even though there's some benefits there. Usually, if they do this type of stuff, they burn it afterwards. get whatever they can. So with stricha, it's necessary. Dikas rachman asada. If it would just say field, havamina masha basada, I would only think that you chayiv for the grain in masha basada in midiachin alai, but you won't be chayiv for if it ruins the floor. In other words, what I know now is that someone plowed the field and then the fire comes in. He's going to have to plow it again because the fire ruins the top of the soil, and you have to plow it over. You have to plow it over to be able to plant. So I would have thought but if it would have only said sada, I would have thought only grain, not that yechayev for if the plowed field got ruined, the soil itself. Kamash Malan. Now that it says everything else, that yechayev for the grain already. Now why does it have to say field if you said everything else? The answer is because now I know that sada is coming to tell me not just the grain that's in the field, but even the field itself, even the soil itself. If it wouldn't have said the other ones, I would have thought that field meant the grain in the field. Now that it said the grain, now I know it's referring to the field itself. Okay, we have a little shift over here from halacha to samagarata. You get a treat every 60 pages. Okay. Says like this: Amar Rab Shimon bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yonasan, Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yonasan. Very common. Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yonasan. Ein pranas b'laylam ela b'zman shirasham b'aylam. When does Puranas come around? Puranas sounds like a plague. When the plagues come around, that's because there's wicked people in the world. Now, the commentaries explain that, of course, it's all because of Averis. But it's only because the Averis are continuing to be done, not because the Averis were done. Hashem doesn't punish if the Averis stop. It's only when it's continuing. This guy was in collapsed. They took him to the hospital. He wakes up. He said, what do I have or something? They said, oh, the doctors think it's a virus. So he says, of course it's a virus. What do you think? It's my mitzvahs? Okay. But nevertheless, it's even though it comes from the wicked people that are continuing to do a virus. So it's the plague starts with the tzaddikim first. The fire goes out. In England, I don't know. So, in England, I heard the joke like this. This guy wakes up in the hospital. He says, "Nurse, did I come here to die?" So the nurse says, "No, you came here yesterday." Okay. You found it? Yeah, because that's the English accent. So it says that the fire went out and got thorns. The thorns are referring to the wicked. The fire is there, the plague is there only when the thorns are there. But the plague starts with the righteous. It eats the grain, but actually, nechal means and it had consumed the grain. It doesn't say that it consumes. It says it consumed the gadish. That means that it was already consumed by the time it got to the thorns. It finds the thorns, and the granary was consumed. Why? Because the grain is the tzaddikim. By the time it finds the thorns, the tzaddikim are already gone. Tani Rabbi Yosef, Maidiksiv. Rabbi Yosef taught, what's the meaning of the pasuk? You should not leave your house until the morning. This is by the plague of the firstborn. If there's permission for the plague to the angel that causes destructive angel go around, he doesn't differentiate between the righteous and the wicked. That's why the righteous have to stay inside. Not only that, but it'll even start from the righteous. I'll cut off from you righteous and wicked. It says first the word righteous. Rabbi Yosef cried. Rabbi Yosef was teaching this. And he cries, Kuli hayin nami la'ayin diamond. We're considered like nothing. I don't know if he says we. Kuli hayin nami. They're so much so that they're considered like nothing. Amarle Abaya says Tivusu lagabayu. Yeah, them. He says it's a kindness to them that they shouldn't have to see everything that's all the bad things that have happened. That before the evil comes, the tzaddik passes away. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, this says name of Rav. When a person is traveling, he should always come into the city before it gets dark, and he should leave the city when it's light. As he shouldn't come in at night, and he shouldn't leave when it's dark. You should wait for the morning to leave. Shnemar, there goes those 6 o'clock flights. Well, 6 o'clock is fine. You should not leave your house until the morning. Rashi and Taisvus means sunrise or alois. If there's a plague in the city, stay inside. This is the quarantine. When by COVID, this Gemara was being quoted. Everyone was sending out things like, "Oh, Shenamar," as it says, that no one should leave his house until the morning. It says, go, my nation, go into your, come into your rooms, close the doors behind you. It also says, and outside the sword is consuming, and inside your rooms is fear. What is the meaning of why do we need a second pasuk here and the third pasuk? It says, if we would only have the first pasuk, we would say that's by night. Don't leave your house by night. But during the day you're allowed to go out. It says, no, go inside your rooms and close the door. That's because there's no fear inside. But if there's fear inside as well, then maybe what's the difference if you go outside? Maybe it's good to go outside. Stay inside and be afraid. No, it's telling you that even though there's fear inside, but outside it's worse. Outside is the sword. Yeah. Rava be'iden ritcha. Rava, at a time of anger, which means the time of a plague, he would actually close the windows. That says that the death came through our windows. It does not say that they would wear masks. Tanarabanan, start in a brayso, Rav be'ir, but that's just because masks don't work. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't quarantine and all of that. Rav be'ir pasar raglecha. If there's a famine, then you should spread out your feet. That means you should go to another place. There was a famine in the land, and Avram went to Egypt. And it also says, this is by those Mitzrayim. There were 4 lepers over there. It was Gehazi and his sons. They said, if we go into the city, we'll die over there. If we stay out here, we'll die over here. Let's just go to the camp of Aram and we'll see what's there. We're going to die anyway. Okay, so it says that they went over there. They found food, and actually the place everyone had run away, and then the whole story of that. So my va'imer, yeah, they got trampled. Right? My va'imer. Why do we need another pasuk? When does it say you should go to another place? That's only if there's no danger to life. But if there is a danger to life, then maybe what's the difference if you stay here, if you go there? So Tashema pasuk says, let's go to Machna Aram. If we live, then we live, even though over there was dangerous. But nevertheless, because there's a famine, so he's going to die over here, over there. I know it's dangerous, but there's still a chance of survival. Yeah, someone told me he was in somewhere in Germany, Berlin, by the Kristallnacht. They broke all the shoals, the glasses, Shuls and all the Jewish stores and all of that. So he
Long.
in 1939, and so his father took the family and they left. His father said, "We have no idea where we're going. We have no idea where we're going to survive. But one thing's for sure, over here it's no good." So it was like very clear. A lot of people thought like maybe it's it's going through a bad time. It's like no, this is it's over. Okay, Tanur Rabbanan. He ended up making it to China. To China? Hong Kong, China. Yeah, he ended up making it there. Tanur Rabbanan, Defer Be'ir. If there's a plague in the city, don't walk in the middle of the road, because there's cars over there. No, it's not cars. It's because the angel of death is in the middle of the road. He drives right in the center of the street. Because since he has permission to kill, so he goes right in the center. Shalom Be'er, but if there's peace in the city, don't go on the side of the roads. Given Leslie Rishusa, because since he doesn't have permission to be there, so he's actually hiding on the side of the road. So you shouldn't go on the side, you should walk in this middle of the road. Never be here if there's a plague in the city. Don't come in to a shul alone. Because the angel of death keeps his utensils over there. That's only if there's no children that are studying there. People don't daven there. Okay. People are davening there, then it's fine. So what does it mean, come in alone? I don't know. Yeah. What do they have? I don't know who the Rashbash is. They quote a Rashbash. One of my kids was telling me about the Rashbash. Oh, the son of the Tashbish. The son of the Tashbish is the Rashbash. That was a different Rashbash. Okay, so now the Rashbash says, okay, it's a Rishon. He says, middle of the road is figurative, idiomatically. It says one should not be a middle of the road. One should not act in moderation in regard his diet and health regimen. Rather, one should take drastic countermeasures against the disease. They add in parentheses, as recommended by physicians. Okay, when the city is not threatened by a plague, then one should avoid the roadside extremes. In the long term, that is where the angel of death is. The extremes is not good, unless it's a plague. Okay, so yeah, according to this commentary. Okay, it's close. Right? They didn't have the actual germ. They didn't have, yeah, and they have von Leeuwenhoek sometime in the 1600s. Got the microscope, the magnifying glass and microscope. Tanur Rabbanan, Klavim Boichem Malach Hamavis Be'ir. If the dogs are crying, it's because the angel of death is in the city. Klavim Mesachkim, if the dogs are laughing, Eliyahu Hanavi Baler, it's because Eliyahu Hanavi is there. That's only if there's no female dogs around, and they're laughing for other reasons. Actually, it doesn't say dogs, but I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know the nature of that. Yosef Rabbi Ami or Rav Asi Kamei Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. These two sages, Rav Ami and Rav Asi, are sitting in front of Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Maram Malay, this one says to him, Lema Mar Shmaitza, teach us halacha. Maram Malay, this one says, Lema Mar Agadata, teach us stories. Pasach Lemei Mar Agadata, so he starts to say the stories. Blei Shavik Mar, the other one says, I don't want to hear stories. Pasach Lemei Mar Shmaitza, so he says halacha. Blei Shavik Mar, the other one says, I don't want to hear halacha, I want to hear stories. Let me give you a parable. You know what it's similar to? A man has two wives. One is young and one is old. The young one tells the husband, "Oh, you have so many white hairs," and she pulls them out. The older one says, "Oh, you have so many black hairs." She pulls them out. Becomes bald from both sides. Basically, yeah, and they're going to end up hearing nothing. So he says to them, let me say something that you can both appreciate. I'll say both things. He says, the fire goes out and finds thorns. Talking about that the person lit the fire in his own property, but it went and goes out on its own. The one that lit the fire, it sounds like he did it directly. The one that lit the fire has to pay, even though he lit it on his own. Now it looks like he lit the fire. So the one, when it comes to paying, it looks like it's direct. When it comes to lighting it, it looks like it was indirect. Hashem says, I have to pay for what I caused. And I lit the fire in Tzion, Shnemar, they said the fire went out in Tzion and ate the foundations. When he also live nicer base, but in the future I'm going to build a base of Mikdash with fire, Shnemar, and I'll be a wall of fire around it, and for honor, I'll be inside it. So Hashem will rebuild the base of Mikdash with fire, and he takes responsibility. Shmaitza, what's the halacha? It starts off with saying that it was your own money that caused the damage, your possessions, because you lit it in your property. But it ends off with saying how you have to pay. It's coming to teach you that the fire is obligated because of an arrow. Basically, the commentaries say that even though the reason why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed is because of our own Yetzer Hara, but it's Hashem that gave us the Yetzer Hara, and it's Hashem's responsibility to take that away. So, ultimately Hashem takes responsibility for it to bring Mashiach. Vayisave David vayomer mi ashkeni mayim mibar beis lechem asher b'shar v'yivku shleish lagibar machne plishtim v'yeshuv mayim mibar beis lechem asher b'shar. What happened was David was thirsty. I'm not going to be able to finish this. Let's leave it right there. Vayisave David. We'll leave it over there.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Have a good day.
Okay.
No, it still holds us responsible, but Hashem also takes responsibility. Both.